very, very much a lot to do with
Louder,
bullying.
louder.
Okay, so
That's me.
bullying is a concern that I'm very personally involved with in everything I do. Working with the colleges now and with the churches and any other organization that is interested in trying to get a handle on that issue, that serious problem. We have a group we call the Old Time Gospel Singers, and we sing songs that relate to love and relationships and friendships. And I made a comment earlier, we don't really care. It doesn't really bother us that it's just a small group. We think you're most important. We're glad you're here. You are meaningful to me for being here and to us. Our group is the Old Time Gospel Singers. This is Wayne, he's our lead. This is Susan, my wife. She's alto. I'm Larry, I sing bass. And this is Ray, who plays the keyboard. Hope you enjoy our first 4 songs before we start our program.
Well, living in this so simple world, all we comfort and afford, climbing alone to face temptations harder than me. Where could I go but to the
forms of education. Started out as a teacher, principal, counselor, advisor, and his wife, over here, Susan, she retired as an educator as well. So they've kind of got the education business figured out, and now they're sharing it with us. Mr. Vines, Dr. Larry Vines here, has written a book on how to eliminate bullying in schools. And he's spoken on this subject in many different venues. And we are fortunate to have him here tonight. And I'm just happy that you are here, and I wish more were here to take advantage of this. But he can speak very well for himself. He doesn't need me to tell you about his accomplishments. Mr. Vines, Dr. Vines. It's not necessary to wait until his talk is over. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, spit it out, and let's get a good answer.
I've had an opportunity over the years, 50 years, to serve as an English teacher, a counselor, a principal, vice principal, a zone coordinator, an assistant to a superintendent, and then step away from the plate and do 20 years as an interventionist. I'm sorry, is the mic?
Yeah, put it in a little holder. That'll be better.
I don't like to eat the mic, so is that okay? All right, I want you to be able to hear me. I try to put the information that I need to disseminate to you in a way in which it provides me an opportunity to have focus and eye contact with you. I try my best to memorize my statements in such a way that I don't have to glance down and do anything. That's just me. I like to see what you look like, see what kind of attitude you may have about what I'm saying, and it feeds me to a point that provides guidance. I've done a lot of this. Before I came here today, at about 11 to about 12:30, quarter to 1, I spoke at the University of Montevallo. And we had to change some of what I'm going to say to you from what I told them. They were in their third year of college with the attitude and the desire to be a teacher. And, you know, they understand that not all of their professors are in a position to have been where some of us have been, like, as an example, where I have been. And I've been on the battlefield, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been tough. You know, you can look at me and say I have white hairs. That didn't come, you know, what's not a hereditary thing. It's hard work. It's working in that tough environment of being on the street where the action is. I've seen a lot of things, and I can't and don't have time to tell you all about where I've been and what I've done. But I can tell you that bullying didn't start 50 years ago. Bullying has been around for a long, long time. Let me pick up with an event that occurred in 2004, one that which you probably don't know about. If you read or remember anything about Beslan, Russia, it is not close to Moscow. Beslan has an elementary school, or had an elementary school in 2004. And September is when they start their school year, September the 1st. And they started their school year in September the 1st of that year. And there was a Chechnya group that was trying to pull away from Russia and set up their own community, their own town, their own country, so to speak. Some of you may have remembered this historical moment when the Chechnya people decided that they did not want to be a part of the Soviet Union. What happened, there were some radicals, serious radicals, that decided that they would take over the elementary school. And they did. There were 31 terrorists, highly trained, very specialized. And they came in and they took over the school. The school had 1,157 students. Well, when they took over the school on the first day of school, they just walked into the school. At that time, we did not know that we needed to make serious preparations about who comes into our schools. And, you know, you talk about bullying. What happened was these Chechnya group of terrorists that came in demanded that Chechnya be released from the hands and grips of Russia. And they said, one way we think we can do this is we're going to take over this elementary school, and they did. And what they said was, if these kids and their grandparents who have scampered up to the school because they knew there was a problem, and their parents, we're going to take somebody every hour, and we're going to blow a bullet in their head, and we're going to throw them out the front door. They did that to 537 people over a period of 3 days. They did it to 187 elementary kids. When I read that story, I thought about a lot of things. Several weeks ago, I had an opportunity to go to my granddaughter's school, and because I was 2 years in the Marine Corps, they had service that honored those who had been in the service. And she called me on the phone one night and said, would you please go with me? Would you please be in that program with me? Would you please stand when they call for the Marine Corps, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force? When they call the Marine Corps, would you please stand up and hold me and hold my hand? And I said, I will be there. Tell me the day. On the way into the auditorium, I passed by long lines of babies, kids, first, second, kindergarten, third graders. And I thought to myself as I cried walking down the hall, I said, do you realize that someone in Sandy Hook School came in and walked into this school, that school, and killed 22 people? How in the world can anyone walk into a school and kill anyone? And it brought me to the point where I remembered the Chechnya situation in Beslan, Russia, with 187 students killed. And what does that all have to do with bullying? It has to do with another research that I have done. That's just the foundation. It has to do with another research that I've done that's based on Ron Edmonds, Dr. Ron Edmonds in the late 1970s. Dr. Edmonds started a movement with some of his cohorts that was entitled the Effective School Movement. And what he did in 1977, for 2.5 years, they developed the concept of what made a school an effective school. The first thing on that list, they had a total of 5, and if you go back late in 1983, Dr. Ron Edmonds passed away with a heart attack. He was a superintendent of a school system right outside of Chicago, an all-black community basically, with some Hispanics, and they were not doing well on their test scores. And what he did was, hey, there's got to be a solution to this problem. So what Ron did was call his co-workers together in various communities, and they came up with the Effective School Movement, and initially it was 5 points. Now if you go back and read the research, which dropped for a while and then came back up in the mid-1980s, it is now the same thing, with featuring Dr. Edmonds, and now there's 7, and sometimes depending on how you read it, there are 8 points. But let me stress the second point. The second point, he said, and the committee said, there can be no learning in a school. There will be no learning if that school is not perceived by every stakeholder as being safe. No one will learn. No teacher can teach. Nothing will happen that is positive in that school without there being the concept, the understanding, and the belief by the community, the parents, the teachers, and the students that that school is safe. That brought about, now there are other points and I don't have time to get into those, but they're also pertinent and important, they're meaningful, but let's talk about that as it leads into bullying. Bullying back there then, I was bullied. I'm sure most of you were bullied in some way, but I've had students that came to me in tears. And not only were they crying because they had been bullied, because they did not feel the school that I was working at that time was safe. It was not for them a safe environment, and they were not happy. So what did they do? They found people that were taking advantage of them. They found bullies. They found people who were making some negative comments to them that they refused to get on the bus in the morning. They would tell their parents, I'm sick, I have a headache, I can't go to school, I just can't get out of the bed. I can't eat, I can't sleep. I'm afraid to walk down the hall because I'm afraid to go in the boys' bathroom because I don't know what somebody's going to say to me when I get in there. I can't go to my locker because I have a bottom locker and someone above me on a locker right above me will throw a book down on my head and hurt me. I can't go to school, Mr. Vines, Dr. Vines, if I do not have the security of feeling safe in this school. And then I started my research. And then I found out a lot of things and a lot of cases that I dealt with and worked with. And I found out that there is a way to effectively deal with bullying, harassment. And I call it, fits under the category of conflict resolution. And I have been trained to become a specialist in that field. And I have time and I need to lead into that for a few minutes so you can understand what it is. What it amounts to is that, let me use an example, that same child coming to me and say, Dr. Vines, I have this major issue. I am not feeling safe about coming to your school, to this school. I don't want to walk down the halls. My mother knows that I'm frightened. There's a real concern here. And I can say to this child as I did, can you feel comfortable enough to tell me what's happening? There has to be someone in the school that will listen. You know what else someone has to be in that school? Someone who cares. Someone who can put away any feelings of discrimination, any feelings of anything that will stand in the way of listening to a child who has a problem. I did that. And they opened up to me because they felt safe. And I was able to hear them say, I can't continue to ride the bus. I'm not coming to school anymore. They want me to kill myself. I get these messages on Facebook that says clearly, why are you still here? Why are you not dead? Why have you not taken your life? You are worthless. Another thing I learned is 10, 11, and 12-year-old students do not have the ability to understand their true and real concept of death. They do not understand that if you take your life, you won't come back tomorrow. They don't get that. What they do is they think that it can eliminate the problem, but they don't understand that it's permanent. And so they find that is an opportunity to save themselves. And what they do is destroy themselves forever. So I worked on that problem, and finally, in this particular example that I'm using, I said, well, I have a procedure that I'm using, that I'm testing, that I'm working on, that I'm researching. I'm spending hours on it, and I'm going to make a book and do 7 or 8 articles about it. What I'd like for you to do is sit here with me because you've indicated you trust me. And what I'd like for you to do is face the person that's doing this bullying to you. And this is just one example I have time for. And finally, it took some convincing. Yeah, well, they terrorize me. I mean, how can I sit in the same room with these people or this person? Sometimes it's more than one. How can I stay and tell them all of this? And I said, you can do it because I'm here. That's why you can do it. And nothing else is going to happen. I'm here. And I'm a big man. And I can take care of you. And I can take care of me. Not often did I have to say that, but one case I did. And so we bring the student in that's doing the harassment and the bullying. And that child is being prepared by me to look that bully right straight in the eye and say to that person, or those people, it depends on the situation. And they tell them how badly you have hurt me. And they tell them exactly what you've done to me, specifically. What you're saying, what language. And I'm not going to repeat that language. You don't need to hear it, but it's not good. But that language is brought out by the person who's been bullied. This is what you say to me. This is how you treat me. You can't tell me you're not the one who does this to me on Facebook, even though you don't have to put your name on it. I know who you are, and I know this is what you're saying to me. And then, so often, after the truth is given to this bully by the person who has been bullied, the person who has been doing the bullying starts to cry. And the group, and I can tell you that's true, they start crying. And so often they will say, I did not mean that. I did not know I was hurting you. And sometimes, of course, they're telling the truth because sometimes to them they thought it was funny. But perception is reality. Perception is real. And if it's real to the person that hears it, then it's real. And that's where we deal with it. It's reality. And once the tears or the honesty and the promises are made that I'm not going to do this again, I will never do it again, then contracts are written. And parents are notified. You know, another thing that makes it easy for a child who has been the bully to tell the truth and open up is because they know on that first incident, they are not going to be suspended from school. There is not that fear. There may be the fear of telling parents, but they can tell the parents in a positive way that I don't have to miss time in school anymore because I'm not going to do this anymore. And on the basis of that, and with a signed contract and a notification sent to the office, the administration, and the other teachers, both of those kids can go back to class. And so often they can establish or reestablish a friendship. And that's the basic crux of the process for mediation. There's more to it than that. There's a no-contact contract. If necessary, that can be done. Where all the teachers, all the administrators, everyone in the school, including the parents, come in for a conference and sign an agreement that there will be no contact. And that's monitored by me and everyone else. You know what so often happens? Because this is that middle-aged student. Oh, about 2 or 3 weeks later, they'll both walk in, arm in arm, and they'll say, Dr. Vines, I have something I want to tell you. We made friends. We're okay now. We don't need that contract anymore. And I've already previously indicated to them that if you come back and tell me that and you convince me, then my file will be pulled immediately in front of you, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that file in front of you where you can watch me, and I'm going to tear it in half. and I'm going to throw it in the garbage can, and it will never be in any file anywhere. 90% of those cases are solved. Let me move to another point real quick. Yesterday morning I woke up quite early, and I saw Rebecca listed as a person down in Lakeland, Florida, who had jumped from a deserted tower in a defunct business and took her life. She was 12 years old. Rebecca had been bullied. She had a boyfriend. There were 13 girls that did not like the fact that she had their boyfriend. And so they began to bully her unmercifully. And some of the information that the mother found out about was they would say things like, "Why are you still alive? Go kill yourself. We don't want you around. You're ugly. Move, go, die." And you know, the child's mother found out about this and closed her Facebook account down and moved her to another school. And you know what? Those 12 ambitious young ladies, 11, 12, and 13 years of age, you know what they did? They tracked her down and found where she was in this new school. And you know what they did? They continued to harass her. And they got even more deep in their desire for her to kill herself. And at 11, 12 years old, Rebecca climbed the tower, not realizing the consequences of permanence of death, but the pain and the anguish of not being able to eat, not being able to sleep, not being able to walk into her room and turn her computer on. She killed herself by jumping from this tower. If you want my opinion about how serious this matter is, it's so serious it hurts me. And I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to discuss it every conceivable possible way I can. It is a serious matter. It hurts many people. I have a student who called me several months ago. He was in one of my classes at one of the schools where I was a principal. It had been a long time ago, 16 years, and I want you to hear this story because this part is true. You know what? He called me and he said, "Dr. Vines, this is John." And I said, "John, you're going to have to wait just a minute. I've got about 100 Johns in my head. Tell me which one you are." He said, "I'm the one that my mother was a doctor and she's retired now. And I brought a gun to school one day and I put it at a student because I weighed 275 pounds. And the student had been bothering me so much and I had been bullied that I couldn't do anything. And I brought a gun to school with the full intent that I was going to shoot him in the head and kill him." And he said, "If you remember well, I put the gun at his head and told him, 'You will never bully me again ever in my life.' And he said, I shot him over his head. I shot the gun up in the air, not at him." He said, "Do you remember that, Dr. Vines?" And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Tell me about you now, John." He said, "I'm a doctor in the emergency room. I have 2 kids. I weigh 187 pounds. I run 3 miles every morning." And that's not the end of the story. The end of the story is that John said, "Dr. Vines, I wake up in the middle of the night 3 and 4 times a week crying. And I have cold sweats. And I remember the pain and the anguish that I endured during that time when I was in junior high, middle school, where those kids did this to me. And my anger and my lack of maturity put me in a position where I felt like I had no other choice. And now I wake up and remember the pain every day of my life. What someone did to me. And I'm not sure that in this life form of mine I'll ever get over it. Just wanted you to know. And I said, John, do me a favor, keep my phone number and call me as often as you can. And I told him, I said, John, I'm addressing that issue. We're going to do something about this. I'm going to speak to every person, every group, every community, every church that will allow me to walk in the doors. And we're going to open this situation wide open and we're going to talk about it. Because anytime you have 3,000 students out of 1 year that face the possibility of killing themselves because of bullying, this is a serious issue. When a child has to lose their entire life, whatever God's plan for them in this world would be, whatever contribution they would be able to give to the world will be totally eliminated because of their life. Their suicide, their being bullied is a serious matter. It should be to you. If you are a parent, do me a favor, and this is my last comment. Do me a favor. Take the computer out of their bedroom. Put it in the kitchen. Put it in a central location in the dining room. Put it anywhere where you can monitor it daily and see what's going on. Be a part of your child's life. Get involved with them. Show them you love them. Show them you care about them. Show them that they're more important than your job or anything else that you've got. Show them you care. It'll make a difference. Thank you.
When you were being interviewed at Montebello last week, also, are you familiar with in Chicago, the parents have to form a caravan a mile in advance to get their kids to school safely? Could you discuss that?
Well, I know a little bit about that. That's an action plan that parents in that community have decided that they would use. And you have to understand one of the other points in the Ron Edmonds plan of what makes a school effective is the parents totally have to be involved. You have to have a PTO or some kind of organization, and they have to understand their stakeholders. And they have to believe that the school is safe. And they have an opportunity under proper guidance to offer assistance to see to it that their child arrives at school and arrives home safely. And that's what they do. She was talking about an incident that I spoke to University of Montevallo, and I was telling them about another situation. I've got so many stories that I tell, and I'm not sure exactly which one she was talking about. But she might tell me a little bit more, and then I'll pick up on it. Hang on just a minute.
I will have to think about that too. However, all of you are here for a purpose, even if it's 30 points. But I would like to hear from you, the student. Have you ever been bullied?
Yes.
Would you mind telling us about it?
I mean, just because I have hairy arms, nothing intense.
Pardon me?
Because I have hairy arms when I was younger.
She said because you have hairy arms.
Wow.
When I was younger, they wanted to me, but my parents were in my life, so it didn't really bother me. So my mom always told me it was a social attribute.
Okay.
I believe everyone in this room has been bullied one way or another at some point in time. It's just that we did not do it with cyberbullying back then because there was no computers.
Would you mind coming up and using the microphone?
What do you do when the student says, what's the point of telling administration when the teacher's not going to do anything about it, the vice principal's not going to do anything about it, and they're going to pick on me more because they know I'm trying to tell somebody about it?
We have that, of course. That's one of the reasons why I mentioned and bring in the concept of the effective school. And one of those 5 concepts, number 3, has to do not only with the parents, but it also has to do with the administration. The administrators have to be highly visible. Not just meaning that they can be seen in the halls instead of having lunch in their offices with the doors locked and their favorite friend. It has to do with the fact that they're seen and visible when they visit and talk with their students. And they have an open door policy where they will act on the issues. And they tell the staff, the counselors, and all the teachers, these are our policies. This is our mission statement. And it includes the fact that we listen when the kids have problems and we take proper action. And we follow the rules of this school. And if you can't follow the rules of this school and you work here, we'll find another place for you.
I remember now, when we were discussing this, your method of when you first took over as conflict administrator, conflict resolution person in Birmingham. They asked what you were doing, and you met with the mothers. You went around to the homes.
Oh yeah, the church. Can I tell the story about the church? All right, let me tell you the story about the church. One of my assignments as a principal was to go into a black community. Now, you have to keep in mind, if I could show you this, but I'll try to do it in such a way that I can depict the truth of it. The 750 students, half of them were white and half of them were black, and I would sit there by Judge Sam Porter and one of my superintendents to make a school where there was not. There was a school, but there was not an organized school. And one thing I did, let me tell you a couple of things. I don't want to bore you, but you know, these things are big time to me, and if you don't mind listening, I'll certainly talk.
The personal real stories are what really count.
Which one? The personal real stories. Okay, this is a personal real story. I took over the school, and before I took over the school, I was in my 280Z. Any of you know what a 280Z is or was? They don't make them anymore. They're sports cards, and I had mine taken to the vocational school where I had some input, and the kids took over the doing and the upgrading and rebuilding and painting my 280Z, and they cleaned the leathers and everything. And they had a ball with it. I'd go visit with them after school hours from time to time, and they were just showing me with their excitement what they'd done to my car. Well, finally I picked it up. And I had this new assignment, and I was driving through the community of Edgewater, which was a black camp, and then Edgewater also had a white camp. And so I've been driving through both camps, but I saw a student, kid on a bicycle that was in a ditch. And, you know, there's 2 stories here I'm going to tell, and then we'll go back to see if you have any questions. But he was in a ditch, and I had on a brand new shirt and a clean brand new car that had been redone and rebuilt and everything else. And he was in a ditch because he had a wreck, and I had to crawl down in the ditch to get him, and he was bleeding, and I picked him up. And he said, "Who are you? What? You know?" He was this like, "What did you do this for? I don't know you." I said, "I'm your new principal. I'm sure you're going to be one of my students." "How old are you?" He said, "I'm 10 years old." I said, "You're going to be mine. Where do you live?" He said, "Well," and he had a hard time talking because he was in pain. And I put him in my car, and he was bleeding on my car. And I said, "You know, I don't really care. I can clean blood off a car. There's a way to do it." And I took him to what he said was his home, and I picked him up in my arms and walked him up the steps. And it took him and laid him down on a sofa that was so old that I don't even know you could sit on it, but it was dusty and dirty, and I laid him down on it, and his mother came in. And I said to her, "I found him in a ditch and he needs some help." And she looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm the new principal of Edgewater Junior High School." She said, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "I'm going to have an instructional improvement committee, and I'm going to open it up to parents, people in the community, the police departments, and everyone else I can open it up to, and they're going to give me insight on how to run this school, because I don't know. I've never been in this situation. And she said, what day do you want me there? Tell me what to do. And she showed up, and she was my first PTO president. That's not the end of the story. I went to a black church on Sunday. I did also the white churches also on their Sundays at the visit of their preacher. But I went one I'll never forget. Dr. Jonathan McPherson, he's still alive. He and I had met infrequently, and he said, I want you to come to my church, and I want you to come on a regular basis, but I want you to come and just sit and be in my church. I said, yes, sir. And so we had that handshake, and one Sunday I said, I think it's time I'll go to Dr. McPherson's service. And he had the largest Baptist church in the community, and he was a teacher at Miles College. And I walked in and sat down in the back of the church in a back corner of the pew, and I saw that some of the students in the school that I was dealing with disciplinary problems were ushers in the church. And some of the problems I also saw were singing in the choir. And then the next thing I did, I sat down in the back corner, and he saw me walk in, and he said, Dr. Vines, that's not where you're supposed to sit. There are 3 seats up here. One is for the guy that directs the choir, one is for me, and one is for you. And he said, would you come up here, please? And I said, yes, sir. And I walked up there, and I sat down. And when he got through making announcements, and that wonderful, awesome choir did their singing, and if you've never heard that kind of singing, you don't know what you're missing. It is unbelievably in depth and beautiful as you hear them sing. Meaningful experience. Then he looked over at me and he said, Dr. Vines, it's your time to talk. You're going to preach this morning. And I thought, Jonathan, I don't think that's what you should have done to me. But I got up, and I knew I'd been a Sunday school teacher, and I just pulled from my memory, and I did a sermon. I don't know how I did it. I did it. And then you know what he did? He stood up after I got through from his part of the pulpit, and he said one thing. He said, I don't want any of you kids, any of your parents, to ever go up to that principal and say anything to him about any kind of problem you have. If you have a problem, you bring it to me. And Dr. Vines and I will settle it for you. He said, I will protect this man, and you will give him respect. And he sat down. That's what you do to make the school effective. That's what you do to eliminate bullying. That's what you do to show that you love people. And that's what the world is all about. Do you realize that there are really no negatives ever? No, not really. There are only opportunities to grow and turn things into a positive because it's an opportunity to learn. Everything that you think is negative is nothing more than a trial for you to grow and to become and to be better and to learn from it.
This woman here, may I suggest and see what you think about it, if she gathered other mothers and fathers, because surely I'm sure her child isn't the only one being abused in this way. But there's security, safety, power in numbers. What would you say?
Organize. Organize your parents, get on the phone and talk to them, because if you're one that has that experience, others have had it also. And there are ways to change your administration. There's a way to put pressure on principals that lock themselves in their offices and eat lunch with their buddies, and they don't walk the halls, and they don't spend time talking with their parents and listening. There's a way to change that.
And you are paying their salary.
Yeah, the environment that I'm thinking of, it is a school, it's a blue ribbon school. The principal is awesome, he's a Christian man. The administrators are in the halls. substituted there, and long-term substitution too, you know, maternity leaves. And it's so subtle. And the teachers, so much is put on them that if it were even mentioned, if the student even happened to mention, oh, Miss Lozier, so-and-so's, you know, kind of said something to me. If the student doesn't come forward and say more, it's going to just go in passing. And the students don't want to talk because the bullying will get worse. So how do you make it that the kids feel safe talking?
There has to be someone on your counseling staff or staff in the school that can develop trust with the students, such as what I did, which you have to work for. There should be a policy generated by the superintendent's office and followed through by the principal that states the mission statement. And that statement should be inclusive as far as listening to students and taking action on problems that are brought to their attention. Question?
Not a question. I went through it, I lived through it, I switched schools because of what you're saying, and I agree with you that the administration doesn't say it, doesn't do anything unless you look at them and you say, life or death. You either change this or I kill myself. And that's finally when my principal looked at me and said, okay, we'll do something about it. I had to throw that on the table to get him to listen.
But it wasn't the principal that did anything about it. We pulled her from the school. The principal's attitude to its bullying was, get a spine, grow up, and you're probably bringing it upon yourself.
So you told your mom, though, you spoke with your mom. And how old were you when you were
I was 16 at the time. I'm 17 now, and I've been out of that school for 2 years. And to this day,
What do you been out of school?
about a year and a half, to this day, there are times where I can sit up and say, I still don't want to do it. I still don't want to go to school. I still don't want to see people. I still don't want to live it. Because of the pain that I went through at the other school. And to this day, I still want to get that principal removed from that school.
And see, this is awesome that you have this relationship with your mom. The boys are harder. And that's where it gets tricky. They don't talk, and if it's a jock that is saying something,
Well, and when it comes down from the top and it's the principal saying, oh, you know, you have to learn to get thicker skin, you have to, you know, just deal with it.
That is not.
What are the
the
teachers
solution.
gonna do at that point? We got to the point that we almost took it to the media.
And that's
They
not,
got that
sometimes
now.
that's not a bad plan.
Because
We've had
nowhere else to
schools,
turn.
we've had schools in the city of Birmingham that their parents did go to the media and say, look, and then the superintendent had to open his eyes and do something, whatever it takes. This is a serious problem. It needs to be addressed correctly.